Since 1993, the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation has been dedicated to preventing Alzheimer's disease by funding research studies and educational programs on a brain-healthy lifestyle. As a nonprofit organization, our research and educational outreach activities are made possible by the generosity of private donors. It is our vision that the 4 Pillars of Prevention program can reduce the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, and everyone can enjoy a lifetime of peak mental performance. To learn more, please visit our website at www.alzheimersprevention.org. For ongoing updates, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Good evening, and welcome to Lifestyle for a Super Brain, an educational webinar sponsored by the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. I'm Matt Russell, President and CEO of Russell Public Communications, and it's my privilege to serve as tonight's moderator. This webinar is part of a year-long series of programs and events commemorating the 20th anniversary of the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. The organization was founded in 1993 by Dr. Dharma Singh Khalsa, best-selling author and researcher in the area of brain longevity. Dr. Khalsa continues to serve the foundation as president and medical director, and we'll be hearing from him shortly. With a mission to educate the public on research-based strategies to prevent memory loss, the foundation has chalked up some significant milestones over the past 2 decades. It has partnered with major academic institutions on groundbreaking research, which has been published in peer-reviewed medical journals. Its work has been presented at a number of medical conferences all over the world, from right here in the United States to France, Argentina, Mexico, Spain, and beyond. In 1997, Dr. Khalsa wrote the book Brain Longevity, which provides tips and tools for maximizing brain health, largely based on the Foundation's work. The book quickly became a bestseller and was ultimately published in 12 languages. Several years ago, I had the honor to accompany Dr. Khalsa on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., where he testified before a congressional committee on the integrative approach to Alzheimer's prevention, formally calling on Congress to make the funding of prevention research a priority. And following his appearance before Congress, Dr. Khalsa was invited to discuss his work with Dr. Richard Carmona, the 17th Surgeon General of the United States. And during that private meeting, which I attended as well, Dr. Carmona affirmed that the work of the Foundation should be considered mainstream. Now, over the last 20 years, great strides have been made on reaching the world with this message of hope. And with a new diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease every 68 seconds, the Foundation today reaffirms its mission to help build stronger brains, enhance mental fitness, and prevent Alzheimer's disease. And this evening's program is one of the ways that they're doing just that. This evening's program is also made possible through gifts from individuals and organizations worldwide. The Foundation is a charitable 501c3 organization and relies on donations and grants to support its work. Corporate partners for tonight's program include 3HO Kundalini Yoga, Alzheimer's Speaks, Life Force Yoga, Sharp Brains, Spirit Voyage Yoga Music and Events, Yoga Alliance, and Yoga Fit. And a special thanks also goes to our friends at Charity Charms, Cranium Crunches, Puzzles to Remember, Sarasvati, Yoga Designed for the Brain, and Sunlight Chair Yoga. I'm also pleased to announce this evening that all of you who have joined us tonight on this webinar are going to receive a free gift from the Foundation. You can choose from free downloads, including meditation exercises, memory chips, memory chip journals, all courtesy of Alzheimer's Speaks. Simply go to alzheimersprevention.org/free gifts to receive your gift. Okay, let's get things started. It's now my distinct privilege to introduce the President and Medical Director of the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, Dr. Dharma Singh Khalsa.
Thank you very much, Matt. And it's really wonderful that we're having this webinar here together today. I'd like to start with a little joke, a little humor. There was this woman who died and went to heaven. And she was met there at the pearly gates by St. Peter. And she said, well, do I get to come in? He said, yeah, no problem. You get to come in, but first you have to spell a word. She said, what word? He said, any word you want, just spell any word. And she said, okay, love, L-O-V-E. He said, that's great. You get to come in, but first I need you to watch the gates for me. I need to take a break. She said, what do I do? He said, same procedure. Someone comes, you just ask them to spell a word. She said, okay. She turns around. Sure enough, the first person who shows up is her ex-husband. She said, Ralph, what are you doing here? He said, I had a heart attack and I died. And do I get to come in? She said, yeah, you can come in, but you have to spell a word. He said, what word? And she thought for a second and said, Czechoslovakia. Thank you. So how many people, if there's a way, I think there's a way for you to actually tell us how many people's lives, or you can just say it to yourself, how many people's lives have been touched by Alzheimer's disease? 5.4 million people have Alzheimer's disease in America today, and that number keeps going up and up and up. And this spends $150 billion a year is what it costs. And it's something that is very, very important. And Lori will be talking about this. There are 10 million unpaid caregivers. That's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, and a lot of pain. It's the sixth leading cause of death. And as Matt Russell said, every 68 seconds, a new case is diagnosed. And that number is expected to go up to every 33 seconds as time goes on. And since our inception, our mission has been to help you create a strong brain, a sharp brain, prevent Alzheimer's disease. We started in 1993, as Matt said, and we had to tread water for a while because we were considered on the outcast. No one really agreed with us. We were told you can't use the word Alzheimer's and prevention in the same sentence. But we kept working away. And around the year 2000, that changed. We started doing our research, and we did all the things that you've seen on those slides, having outreach and things like that. And things really started to improve. And in fact, we were, and still are, the only organization that really is talking about prevention through lifestyle. In fact, I don't know, I was asking Matt before about this. I don't know if this is a coincidence, what this is, but it's today, the exact day, in New York City. I have this right here, this announcement. There's a big meeting going on among conventional doctors and researchers and others on the creation of a cure for Alzheimer's by the year 2025. Now, I think you're going to find this interesting. 40% of the people at that conference represent drug companies. A large percentage also represent conventional, conservative, mainstream doctors who are involved in drug research. And the rest of the people, about 20%, are made up of financial institutions. So you see where the money is going. And what we're trying to do is to show that you really don't have to wait for a magic bullet drug. We believe the answer is here right now, and this is the research that we've been doing all this time. And I want to share that with you. Because we know that we've been talking about the 4 pillars of Alzheimer's prevention. And this is what we'll be talking about here today, a lot of it. First of all, there's diet. What you eat is really important, and we know now that a plant-based diet can reduce the incidence of Alzheimer's by 40%. And also, there are certain brain-specific nutrients. Vitamin E, vitamin C, B vitamins are all critically important, and others, many others. Stress management, especially through yoga and meditation, is also very important, as is exercise and spiritual well-being. So I'd like to invite you to relax and enjoy and sit here with us today as we have a great seminar. And as John F. Kennedy once said, Let's go forward with mental vigor. Now back to our moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khalsa. Thank you very much. And we're going to be hearing from Dr. Khalsa in just a little bit. So don't go too far, Dr. Khalsa. Our next speaker is Lori La Bey, founder of Alzheimer's Speaks. Now, Lori's mother started having memory problems more than 30 years ago and is now in late stages of Alzheimer's disease. Dementia has been a big part of Lori's life. The journey has taught her much, and she is now able to see the gifts wrapped in the package of illness. For Lori, Alzheimer's disease has changed her life in many positive ways. She now speaks, and she writes, she trains and consults on Alzheimer's disease and caregiving, and has developed several platforms to give voice to dementia, including ALZHEIMER'S.com. Here now to share some thoughtful and inspirational ideas for staying emotionally healthy as a caregiver, with a presentation titled Shifting Caregiving Perspectives, Myths and Magic. From Alzheimer's Speaks, Lori La Bey.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing today? I am thrilled to be here. And what I'm going to talk about is the myth and magic of this disease. So much of the time, we just become so overwhelmed by caregiving. Things have really gotten out of kilter and out of whack and out of control, and people need our help. And so we're going to talk about that today. How do we help people? How do we help them survive? And I think one of the first things that we have to do is realize that dementia is a disease of society, not of one. It has a ripple effect, and it's far-reaching. Dementia isn't a set of symptoms like a cold, like a runny nose and a watery eyes and a cough. There's all kinds of symptoms of dementia. But what about caregivers? What kind of symptoms are you exhibiting? Most people are going to go through a phase of depression, exhaustion, frustration. They're going to be overloaded with stress. And so if you're feeling any of that, you're in the norm. So how do we help those that care, and how do we help those they care for? I'm going to pose a question to you. And the question is this: what's the common link between dementia, the flu epidemic, the fiscal cliff, and the mass shootings that we see? Now, this stumps most people, but for me, it's extremely clear. It's our care culture. You see, if we look at these 4 items, dementia seems fairly simple because when someone becomes ill, they need our help emotionally, physically, financially, psychologically. The flu epidemic, people really kind of wonder about that one. But let me ask you this. How often do you wash your hands during flu season? Or really any season? And how many of you go to work when you're sick? Because you need a check. And you're not really thinking about somebody else might catch what you have. It's our decisions and our choices that we make day in and day out that affect our care culture. We can see with the fiscal cliff and all the budget fighting through the government, we're not doing well at working collaboratively together. And the mass shootings are people telling us strong and hard, we are not caring for them well. We've missed something. So our care culture is critical. And in the U.S. here, we seem to view caregiving as a state of crisis. But I'm here to tell you today that it's a natural state of being, because we are caregivers from the moment we're conceived. Now, people argue with me over that point all the time. And then I say this to them: how many bellies have you patted and how many tummies have you talked to? And immediately people understand that there's a relationship that starts before a baby pops out of the womb. And that relationship lasts all during life. And many will argue that it even ends at death. So I'm going to share a story with you that woke me up at 2 in the morning called Betty the Bald Chicken. And I think this will help show where we are with our care culture and how this has an impact when it comes to dealing with dementia. So Betty was a chicken who lived at a farm, got along with her family and friends great, and one day she was out in the barnyard just pecking at some corn, having dinner. She felt this tug in this pole, and she looked around, and she didn't see anybody right by her because everybody was eating independently. But she knew something was wrong. She just wasn't sure what. She took another look around, didn't see anything by her, and decided to go back to eating. And as she bent her head down, she saw that one feather had fallen from her. And she knew it was her feather. It wasn't there before. No one was near her. But at that point, she decided to make a decision. And her decision was not to say anything to her family or friends. She didn't want to worry them. She didn't really know what to say. She wasn't sure what was up. She just had this feeling in her gut things were changing. And over the next few months, Betty's life went on as normal. Until one evening, she was out eating again her corn in the barnyard when she felt another tug and another pull. But this one was really hard, and she squawked out in pain. And when she looked up, her family and friends were pulling away, and they were protecting her young, and she felt so embarrassed and so ashamed, and she saw all these feathers on the ground, and she saw that she had these bloody pocked marks, and she had never seen her family and friends be so afraid of her. And from going forward, people really pulled back and out of her life. They stopped inviting her to functions. Many of them couldn't even talk to her, let alone look at her. And so Betty started to go to the outskirts of the farm, trying to find some peace in her life, trying to figure out why this was happening to her. And as she walked, she cried, and she tripped over a rock, and the next thing she knew, she fell off a cliff. And she thought, this is it. As she screamed down, she thought she was going to die. But what Betty didn't know was at the bottom of the cliff was a whole nother community. And they came running out when they heard Betty's cries and pain. And they caught her and they welcomed her to their community, the Caring Corral. And it was there where Betty felt at peace. She felt everyone accepted her for who she was today. And she didn't go back up to the barnyard because no one really wanted her there anymore. And over the years, Betty got a little older, and one day she fell very ill and had to go to the hospital. It was at this time everybody in the Caring Corral gathered together, and they decided to send the horse back up to the barn to tell all her old friends and family that Betty was not doing well. And it was at this point when the horse was explaining to all the animals that they had one last opportunity to frame Betty's life. Were they going to pity her and shun her because she got ill? Or were they going to celebrate Betty's life, all she ever was, and what she participated in, gave, the laughter, the sadness, the fun, the silly times? Who are you? Have you been Betty? Have you been shunned by others? Or are you one of the animals on the barnyard who's been scared and uncomfortable, and so you pulled away from a friend or family member who needed you. Or maybe you're one of the caring corral that just loves unconditionally and is willing to accept. This story of Betty the Bald Chicken is much like what I'm told it's like to live with dementia. They're scared, they're shamed, they're embarrassed, they're isolated, and it's time to change things. It's time to tear down the walls of stigmas and isolations and fear and get honest and let us reclaim our connections and our relationships. No disease has a right to take that away. And you are the only one that can protect that. You see, our fears cloud our ability to be person-centered because our fears protect us and not them. Another example I want to give you is to think about this. When someone you know has been diagnosed with dementia, where does your mind go? For most people, if they're by a computer, it's Google or Bing. The second spot they go is to the cemetery. We start packaging up this end of life upon the beginning of diagnosis. And I'm here to tell you it's got to stop. I would have lost an awful lot of time if I did that with my mom. She's been dealing with this disease for 30 years. But because we are so afraid of that blank stare, that shell of a body, like my mom sitting here in this picture, but inside that body still beams a beautiful, beautiful, bright light. And it's our jobs to find it. Sometimes it's difficult because we're going to go in and out of this river of denial if we're the person diagnosed or if we're someone caring for them. And this is going to happen multiple times on this journey with dementia. And so sometimes we're going to be strong enough to pull ourselves ashore. Sometimes we're going to be looking for a friend to throw us a life jacket. And other times we're going to have to go under a couple of times in order to just feel the pain to move forward. But when you're going through this journey of dementia, remind yourself of this. There are only 3 things that I've found that we remember: our tears, our fears, and our joys. Our tears are usually what we cry about over the past. Our fears are what we project in the future. And the joys, the multiple joys that are available to us, live in the moment. And we cannot see them, let alone create them, if we're living in the past or projecting in the future. So what do you want from life of these 3? If you want joy, you need to be part. Create a living memorial. And don't freeze frame people so that you're comfortable when they're in their pinnacle. We need to continue to embrace them and love them throughout. Freeze framing, I'm going to give you a little example here of this picture, and I did it with my mom. When I got engaged, I called and told her I was getting engaged. And 20 minutes later, she called back with the hall, the church, and the menu. And that was just my mom. That's what she did. And I loved that she was organized and fun-spirited and loving. But I wanted to hold on to that person. But looking at this picture on my wedding day, I see that nothing has remained the same. My dad's dead, my mom has dementia, and I'm divorced. I have no right to hold her in time like that. And I think you'll be surprised that you may do the same. You see, our willingness to listen and accept others' truths allow us to change our perceptions and allows them to change theirs. We need to look for our fear triggers, both theirs and ours, in order to change things. Your memory chip is one of those free items that we had talked about. And in the middle there, it talks about focusing on 3 things. Are they safe? Are they happy? Are they pain-free? Most of us as caregivers focus on tasks. And we focus on tasks, we truly are not totally focused on the person, because most of those tasks have an emotional tie to us. But if we can focus on, are they safe, are they happy, are they pain-free, we can push through that barrier. Because a person with dementia uses the same equation we do. It's their current attitude plus their past experience equal their perception, and their perceptions trigger their reactions. And their reactions, when we don't like them, we call behaviors. So it's up for us to find the triggers, to shift our mindset, to allow this shift in our expectations, in our routines. You see, an albino peacock can be a freak of nature, or it can be a beautiful sight. What is your choice going to be? Dementia and aging can be a gift or a disaster. You hold the power. You hold the choice. And, you know, I hope that you are going to take advantage of the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, all of the wonderful materials and resources that they have available to you today and in the future. You'll be able to look at, if you haven't already, their newsletter loaded with great information, the memory quiz, which is really interesting and will help you either ease your mind or maybe help point you to go to the doctor to get more information. Their stress assessment, which is quite fascinating, and is a simple thing you can do. Plus, they have all kinds of nonprofit resources available for you. You can donate to this wonderful foundation, and they've made it really, really simple to do. All you have to do is click on the donate page, and for $25, that $25 will provide 4 people with memory screening. For $50, you'll be able to pay transportation costs for 1 research participant. $100 will purchase supplies for 3 participants in the balance and memory study. And $250 will pay for a biomarker test for the MCI study for 1 participant. And don't limit yourself to those that are outlined there. You can give a one-time donation, or you can donate a car, you can give weekly, you can talk to your work and see if they'll do a match. You can give up a latte, just 1 a week, and that alone will save $48 to $60 that you can donate to a wonderful cause. So help out, participate, support, and you'll find the gifts come back to you tenfold. Matt, I want to pass it back to you.
Thank you so very much, Lori. What a remarkable, intentional, heartfelt presentation. You talked about tears and fears, but to hear you talk about the manifestation of joy and what that really means to caregivers is immeasurable. And I'm grateful for your time and your effort and your advocacy and everything you have brought to the conversation. And my hat's off to you. Thank you so much, Lori La Bey.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to bring back Dr. Khalsa. But first, a little bit about him. Dr. Khalsa graduated from Creighton University School of Medicine in 1975 and received his postgraduate training in anesthesiology at the University of California, San Francisco, where he was chief resident. As chief resident, he conducted highly acclaimed research on anesthesia for cardiac surgery and obstetrical anesthesiology. He's also a graduate of the University of California, Los Angeles Medical Acupuncture for Physicians program and has studied mind-body medicine at Harvard Medical School's Mind-Body Medical Institute. In 1987, Dr. Khalsa established the first holistic pain program in the southwestern United States at Lovelace Medical Center in Albuquerque. And in 1990, he was recruited to become the founding director of the Acupuncture, Stress Medicine, and Chronic Pain program at the University of Arizona College of Medicine's teaching hospital in Phoenix. And in that position, he became the first director of acupuncture in an American medical school. Now, after founding the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation in 1993, as we discussed, he became the first physician to advocate a lifestyle approach to the prevention and treatment of memory loss, including Alzheimer's disease. He's among the world's leading authorities on integrative medicine and has written extensively on a wide range of health and healing issues. And now to talk about the super brain lifestyle with practical tools that everyone can use to maximize their brain health, once again, here's Dr. Dharma Singh Khalsa.
Thank you, Matt, for that terrific introduction. And in the time that I have here today, I'm going to be focusing on our research that you mentioned with yoga and meditation. And I'd like to just for a moment draw your attention to the word limitless, because thus far what we found is we have not been able to discover the limit of the research that we're doing on yoga meditation, especially Kirtan Kriya. We see that it works all the way from the brain and memory deep down into the cells of our body. So please keep that in mind as we go along. And we're going to come back another time for a webinar or a seminar to also take this to a deeper level. A professor once said there are 3 signs of old age: loss of memory, and I forgot the other 2. Oh, well. A recent study by the Alzheimer's Association and by AARP revealed 2 very important notions. The first one is that baby boomers' #1 goal as we age is to maintain a sharp brain. Everybody wants to keep their brain sharp as they age. And yet, our #1 fear is getting Alzheimer's disease. This has recently surpassed the incidence of cancer and heart disease. We're more worried about getting Alzheimer's than we are any other illness, and for good reason. Now, there are some risk factors that are associated with the development of Alzheimer's disease and losing your memory as you age and not having a sharp brain. The first one is age itself. Now, of course, we all want to get old. We want to age well. But yet 50% of people age 85 statistically have Alzheimer's. But the point that I want to share with you is what happened to the other 50%. Not everyone gets Alzheimer's disease. So there must be things that we can do in our life. It's not just luck not to get Alzheimer's. And this is very important to our work. Genetics. Well, again, there are certain genes, and there's more and more genes being discovered all the time that are associated with Alzheimer's. But yet, not everyone who has the genetic picture gets Alzheimer's. Why is that? Well, there have been a number of studies looking at that. So just because a person has bad genes and is getting older doesn't necessarily mean that they're destined to get Alzheimer's. Family history is also very important. And if you have a first-degree relative who has Alzheimer's, you have a higher risk. But not everybody with a first-degree relative has that higher risk. So it's all about hope. Lifestyle and health issues are very important. And all the illnesses that are associated with lifestyle that we know, heart disease, diabetes, stroke, all of those lead to increased risk of Alzheimer's. But if you look at them, they are all preventable. And finally, stress. Stress is a killer. Stress kills brain cells by the millions because it releases a certain chemical called cortisol. And in fact, this has been a major interest of mine for many, many years. But I just want to share with you that a new study came out just as we were getting ready to do this webinar. And I was just sharing it with one of our people here in the office, that midlife stress could be linked to Alzheimer's, a brand new study. But this is very, very telling. It says that in middle-aged women, this was a study done on 600 middle-aged women, they found that as you get older, each additional stressor in your life increases your risk factor for Alzheimer's by 20%. Each additional risk factor, if you become a widow, if you get divorced, if you lose your job, if a relative has an illness, like Lori La Bey was talking about, each one of these increases your risk factor for developing Alzheimer's by 20%. And another one is early life stress, stress of child abuse, things like that. But we're going to talk about that at a later date. So this is very important. There are risk factors, but as you can see, every one of these risk factors can be helped. You don't have to wait for a magic bullet drug. I was driving down the street and I saw this sign that said, "I love my life, diet and exercise, that is the key." But what's missing in this conversation? What is missing here in this statement? Well, they're talking about diet and exercise, but they're leaving out stress management, especially through yoga and meditation. And especially through our particular type of research, we study a simple 12-minute singing meditation called Kirtan Kriya that is one of the options you get for joining us today. You've been told how to do that, I'm sure. And this is why Kirtan Kriya, our research, should be part of the conversation. It makes really great sense. Stress makes it harder to remember things, that we know. Stress leads to anxiety, depression, and insomnia. But yet, all types of meditation lower stress and improves brain function and memory. Meditation also reduces anxiety and depression and improves brain function and memory. And the risk factors we mentioned, anxiety and depression, are reduced with meditation. But the reason that we've chosen to study Kirtan Kriya is because it's rapid, it's precise, it's very effective, it doesn't take long to learn it. In fact, you can do it with a CD. So there are other types of meditation, but they're much more complicated than the simple Sa-ta-na-ma of Kirtan Kriya. And this is Kirtan Kriya. Sa-ta-na-ma. 2 minutes out loud, 2 minutes in a whisper, 4 minutes silently. But you always touch your fingers in sequence. And you don't, I'm just holding them up and you keep them in your lap. But you touch sa, ta, na, ma. 2 minutes out loud, 2 minutes in a whisper, 4 minutes silently, 2 minutes in a whisper, and then 2 minutes out loud. The last part of this meditation is what we call the L form of meditation. And I used to think that this wasn't important, but our most recent research shows that this visualization totally activates the back part of the brain, the occipital lobe. So this is total brain activation. Why? Because somehow these ancient yogis knew that when you work your vocal apparatus, your mouth, your tongue, your voice box, and touch your fingers at the same time, you're stimulating, you can see on this slide, 3/4 of your brain. Your fingers, your voice box, your thumbs, your hands, all of them are stimulated when you do Kirtan Kriya, and this gives a shot of rejuvenation, of re-energization, of blood flow to the brain and makes your brain stronger. I want to illustrate that with one little picture here of one of many that I could show you. Now, if you can see on the left here that these dimples, this is not a healthy brain. This is one of our subjects. These dimples don't belong there, and the brain is very shrunken. It's asymmetric. But after doing Kirtan Kriya one time, you can see how symmetrically healthy the brain looks now. The dimples are filled in, and this is coming out. I've talked to the leaders in the field of neuroradiology. No one is sure what this is because no one's ever seen it before. They've never studied Kirtan Kriya before. But this is some energetic component of the brain. So you can see how healthy, look how much healthier this brain is after doing Kirtan Kriya. That's why we love this meditation. Moreover, the posterior cingulate gyrus is right here, and this is the first area that goes down in function when someone gets memory loss. It's not unlike you go to the gym, you work out your bicep gets stronger. Well, this is the posterior cingulate gyrus. When we do Kirtan Kriya, your posterior cingulate gyrus expands, it gets bigger and stronger. And so I call this Dr. Dharma's stretch hypothesis. But I don't think it's that much of a stretch, really. That as you activate Kirtan Kriya every day, and you stimulate and strengthen the first area that goes down in function when a person gets Alzheimer's, it makes sense to me that you'd have less risk because you're strengthening the first part that goes down in function. I'd like to know what you think about that. You can write in and let me know, but I think it's really, really important. This is one of our studies. This is one done at the University of Pennsylvania. Just want to run it by you. This was published in a very prestigious journal, the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, and it says meditation effects on people with memory loss, basically. And we showed a lot of positive effects on memory, on brain scans, on mood. They did something called a PALMS test, which is a psychological test, includes psychological well-being, and many things. Everything was positive in this study. There was nothing negative. It was all very, very significant, and that's why it was published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. And then Lori obviously talked about caregiving. We did a study at UCLA on our Kirtan Kriya for dementia caregivers who were showing some early signs of depression. We studied everything, their memory, their brain health, their depression, their anxiety, their mood, and interestingly and revolutionary, actually, we also studied the effects of their genes. Telomerase is an enzyme that keeps your DNA healthy. And what we found was that we increased the genetic health, the increase in telomerase, by 43%. And the leader of the Nobel Prize-winning laboratory who did a lot of this research said to me, Dr. Dharma, this work is groundbreaking. So Kirtan Kriya has a tremendous effect from the tip of your toes to the top of your head. It goes all the way down into your genes. And we also saw that it improved what's called genetic effects. It improved had a positive effect on inflammatory genes, meaning there was less inflammation in the body. So we see that Kirtan Kriya is really phenomenal. And it includes, I want to also say that we're not going to have the time to talk about it here, but it includes psychological and spiritual well-being. Spiritual well-being is critically important. Spirituality, developing spirituality. So we see that the memory improved. We see that the longevity effect was increased by 43%. Those are the telomeres. And here's the benefits that I can review for you right now on Kirtan Kriya. First of all, it can be easily learned and practiced at home with a CD. You don't have to go to an expensive workshop. You don't have to travel anywhere at all. You just get this CD off our website, download it, and do it at home. But the key is you actually have to do it. It has to be practiced. You don't do it, you don't get the effect. And our compliance rate was very high in people in the study, so you'll enjoy it. It makes you feel good. It strengthens the brain, as I said, like going to a gym for the body. It strengthens your body and improves your attention, your concentration, your focus, and your memory. So if you have ADD or ADHD, this is perfect for that because it also activates the frontal lobe. You have a better mood, less depression and anxiety, more mental and physical stamina, increased genetic health, and spiritual well-being or spirituality. We actually found that as well. We have a lot of ongoing research. We have a study going on in Finland, which is on our basic program. It's called the FINGER study, the Finnish Interventional Geriatric Study for the Prevention of Cognitive Disability, a long name. We have further studies going on at UCLA and the University of West Virginia showing how Kirtan Kriya prevents the progression of memory loss. We have a new study now going on at the University of Arizona, comparing it to virtual reality balance training, something very new and avant-garde. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to take Kirtan Kriya home with you. I know Matt Russell does it. He loves it. And it starts, anyone can do it. Anyone can practice it like I've been saying, and it's your opportunity to get it here today. It's your free gift. Just go to alzheimersprevention.org/free gift, and you'll get it, and you'll love it, and we'll be happy. And you'll be happy, and you'll make other people happy, and that'll be fantastic. So thank you very much, everyone. We're so grateful that you're here today. We love having you. And now I'd like to turn it back over to my friend, our moderator, Mr. Matt Russell.
Dr. Dharma, thank you as always for your inspiring work, your research, and the love and intention that you bring to the work. I think that comes from a place of authenticity, which really helps to define the promise of the message. And that's something that we can all celebrate here, not only among the attendees of this webinar, but all of the families and the generations of folks that we touch. Thanks again for also reminding our viewers that the Curtin Kriya meditation download is available at alzheimersprevention.org/free gifts. It is the Foundation's gift to you. Please download that and make the investment of time for wellness. And we also want to remind our viewers that the memory chip is also available for download, and the memory chip journal is also available for download. And that is free, of course. Thank you to our friends from Alzheimer's Speaks. We do have one question that has been submitted by one of our viewers today before we introduce our keynote speaker for the evening. The one question here that has come in for Dr. Dharma, Lori La Bey talked a little bit about caregiving, and the question here, how can this particular program help caregivers, Dr. Dharma?
Well, that's a great question, and as I was mentioning, caregivers are at high risk for developing memory loss as well as depression and fatigue and all types of medical illness. So the program, by eating a plant-based diet, getting exercise, in other words, you have to take time for yourself, to help yourself, to put yourself not first because the person you're taking care of is first, but to take time for yourself, to put your health as a top priority. That's number one, is to take time for yourself, put yourself as a top priority. And the second thing is do that Curtin Kriya, because that study was actually done in people with memory, caring for people with cognitive decline, and we saw decrease in inflammation, improvement in health, improvement in well-being. So I would suggest that people do that.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, as always, for such valuable information. We're going to turn this back over to you, Dr. Dharma, to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening.
Just like to say it's a great thrill for me to present our keynote speaker today. This is going to be Oscar nominated and in 30 films, a best-selling health author, model, and of course the granddaughter of the iconic author Ernest Hemingway. So it's my great fun and pleasure to present our keynote speaker speaking on life strategies for optimal health. Please join me in welcoming the delightful Mariel Hemingway.
Well, it is such a pleasure to be here speaking today. I didn't realize I was sort of keynoting on a webinar. I didn't really know what that means, but I would love to sort of share with you my belief that lifestyle is such a huge part of, you know, balancing the brain, balancing our lives, and making us healthier and better on so many different levels. And you know, I don't know if any of you are aware, but I've got a documentary film out called Running From Crazy that is actually premiering tomorrow night, and it just premiered in New York City, and it's really sort of my journey with mental illness, because my family is, while incredibly wonderful and talented and creative, they also suffer from addictions and tremendous mental illness, and there are many suicides in my family. And so this movie is sort of my journey of discovering why my family is the way that they are, and also how I could, you know, overcome the trauma of that upbringing, and also, you know, my life has been this really fascinating journey of trying to find things that make for a healthy body, mind, and spirit. And I feel so blessed to be a part of this, because I love Dr. Khalsa's passion for health and wellness in the way that he is, and it's so integrated with spirituality, because that's really been my journey, is really combining, you know, the very basic food, water, exercise, mindful living, adventure, play, and everything to do with living a regular life, and how that really is so important to creating, you know, a longer life, for longevity, for happiness, for joy. I mean, I suffered from depression most of my life and I didn't know that I was depressed until I wasn't. And I was helped by, you know, my lifestyle and how I live my everyday life really plays so succinctly into living a balanced life and feeling healthy, feeling amazing. And that's, I can honestly say in my 51, almost 52 years, that I am happy and I actually like myself, which was something I couldn't say before. And again, it's those key things of how do we balance our inner life with what we're doing on the outside. And Dr. Khalsa was talking about stress and how incredibly detrimental that is to our health, not just mental health, but the physical health. My ex-husband and my mother suffered from cancer, and one of the keys to healing, well, not my mother, but my ex-husband, was, you know, eliminating, or at least decreasing, not eliminating, but decreasing his stress levels and giving him tools so that he could live a balanced life. Again, we changed the way he ate. He started to exercise. He had a mindfulness practice, you know, a meditation practice every single day, and drank more water, and just, you know, lived this healthy, simple lifestyle. And he is cancer-free now, 13 years, and didn't do chemotherapy and radiation. And I'm not saying that that's, you know, never something someone should do, but in my belief system, that once we can take responsibility for our health and wellness, we can do almost anything, and we can change our world. And by changing our world, we change the world around us, and we create a wellness. One of the things that I like to talk about with this film and stuff like that's going on, when I talk about mental illness, I want to take the I out of illness, put in we, and create wellness. And what I mean by that is, when we create mental wellness, that's a community. That we is all of us coming together, talking about not only mental illness, but physical wellness and spiritual wellness. And all of those must be balanced. And I really believe that focusing on the whole, and that's really, to me, what holistic medicine is the wholeness of our lives and our brain and our function, and how we do the simple things. So how we do anything is how we do everything, and how we do everything is how we do anything. And so having that sense of presence in the small things that we do in our lives is so huge to our wellness. And I've written a book with my partner Bobby Williams called Running with Nature, which is such it's a fun, sort of simple exploration into wellness, but wellness as it pertains to being joyful. And being joyful comes from being like a kid again. And it's about changing perceptions, which leads me to one of the most important things that I believe that one can do, you know, the regular person can do in their lives, is to change the way they start their day. And that's key to creating a day that will work for you. So there's two things that I like to do, and I talk about in the book. One is, how do you go to bed at night, and what are the last thoughts that you think? And I like to sort of chant or visualize a day that is, you know, successful, that is full of energy, full of health, and you know, just seeing what I need, and that can be whatever is, you know, pressing on you, but seeing it kind of unfold in a very harmonious and loving and kind way. And then in the morning, kind of giving those last thoughts of the night before, giving that morning those first thoughts of the day being integrated in the same way, having thoughts of gratitude, thinking about your day and how you'd like it to roll out, not being specific, because as we know, the only way to make God laugh is to tell him what you're going to do, like, in 5 minutes. So we have this idea that we can, create our lives by changing how we think about them. So I really believe that perception and how we do the little things in life really creates a balanced life. That also leads into just ritual. So after I, spend some time in the morning in bed and I think about how I want the day, I focus on my breathing, I pay attention to my breathing, I stretch my body. I think it's really important that we don't jump out of bed first thing in the morning. We slowly, integrate. You want to move into your day with slowness and with mindfulness. And then instead of, running to the kitchen and, grabbing coffee and a donut, really thinking about the ritual of either making your coffee or making your tea and creating ritual around the lifestyle things. And I feel that these keys of how you start your day are just so, it's so powerful. You cannot believe it. I mean, it's one of the things that really changed my life. My silence, my mindfulness practice, my silence, and my changing the way that I started my day was one of the keys to me creating really a mental balance for myself. And it also enabled me to make better choices. So in Running with Nature, we talk about the choices we make, whether it's drinking better water or just drinking water at all, drinking out of glass, and the food that you eat, of course, being, I'm a huge advocate of, eating seasonally, eating mindfully, eating locally, eating organically as much as possible, and really taking time to understand your food, know where your food comes from, and really have a relationship with that. Because ultimately, I think one of the keys to all of our lives being balanced, healthy, and happy is having better relationships in every area. So the first relationship we have to have be completely whole and harmonious is the relationship that we have with ourselves. That's the key. That's number one relationship. So when we start our day slowly and we love ourselves, or we forgive ourselves, or we embrace ourselves for who we are, and we move into our day, then the relationships that we have with everything else, whether it's the relationship we have with our breakfast or our food or our significant others, our loved ones, our children, the people we work with. But we have to really tune in to that relationship that we're having with ourselves, because that is, that's the one that really is the teacher. And here, that leads me, since I feel like I'm in a box by myself. So if I'm rambling, please somebody write something and tell me to be quiet. The relationship. So the relationship to ourselves is so incredibly important. And the reason why I came to this as a realization, and it's probably not a big revelation to anybody who's listening, but for me, it was so profound because I spent a great deal of my life reaching out to everyone and everything and every way, and every way of eating, every way of thinking, so many spiritual practices, so many different kinds of yoga, doing, all outside myself. So I was always reaching. There was always something outside me that was going to teach me how to be better, how to be healthier and happier, how to not be depressed, how to have a balanced life. There was always somebody that knew better what was right for me than me, until I realized that I was that teacher. I was that person. And it took me to getting to 50 for me to really realize that I had the answers to all of my problems. I was my best guru, my best teacher, my best nutritionist, my best trainer, my best everything lay within me. And it took me so long to really understand that. I knew it intellectually, but it wasn't until I had it in my cells where I really got that my mindfulness practice, and Dr. Khalsa was talking so beautifully about his practice and how it's so important, to get to, and the brain really responds to mindfulness in a very big way. And it's proven scientifically that it helps us balance. But it wasn't really till I connected in stillness to myself that I began to trust my intuition and trust that what I was getting was right for me. But I also believe it gets right back to the simplicity of living the everyday, that my everyday habits of what I was eating, if I was drinking water, whether I did take silence, and what I was thinking and my perceptions. And when I started to change the belief system that other people knew what was right for me, and began to empower myself to understand that I was right for me, my life absolutely transformed. And I don't ever wake up depressed anymore. And it's not that I don't have a bad day now and again, but I really understand I can negotiate my life in such a different way, having that flexibility of understanding who I am and where I come from. So it's so exciting to share simple life, because I think simplicity is so overlooked in our society. I think simplicity is hugely underrated. And simplicity means connecting with nature. That's why we called our book Running with Nature. It doesn't mean it's a book about running. It means it's a book about connecting and being in tune with and loving what nature has to offer us. And that is everything, not only adventure and trees and mountains and lakes, rivers and oceans, but it's also so much about, it's so much about who we are, and these and all these things that I'm talking about are such a big part of what we're dealing with in talking about Alzheimer's. I think, not being an expert on the subject, I can tell you, I think research is pretty clear that a healthy lifestyle is going to make that a huge thing for us. So I think that I've sort of talked a lot, and perhaps you can help me, Dr. Khalsa. Perhaps you can say something.
The idea that you have done something that so many people, no matter who they are, I mean, I know you're Mariel Hemingway and everything, but there are so many people who need what you're saying, because there are so many people who suffer from adverse childhood experiences or early life stress, trauma, abuse, whatever. And they go through life never having the understanding or the realization that, they can somehow transcend that's not them. And I'm very interested in this topic and plan to work on a book about this, about healing adverse childhood experiences. And I'm just so grateful to hear you talk about it, because this is an unknown to many people about how what happens to you when you're very young comes back to bite you when you're older. So I appreciate that, and thank you. And I think, go ahead.
No. I'm so grateful that you would mention that, because the early childhood trauma is hugely, it affects our lives deeply. You're in Scottsdale, I think, or you're in Arizona.
I'm in Tucson right now. Yeah, Tucson.
Oh, there you go. You're in Tucson. But in Arizona, I mean, there's a company called Brain State Technology, which balances the hemispheres of the brain through sound, and it's an exquisite technology for creating balance in the brain. It is one of the modalities, aside from lifestyle, that really helped me get over depression and really understanding how the brain works. That's been a fascinating sort of study for me. But I'm just inspired by the conversation, and I think the conversation needs to continue and go deeper. And what I love about this is that, again, I get back to how simplicity is so important, and how we're living our everyday, and how it affects everything else in our lives. It's a domino effect. How you start your day will determine a lot of how the day will end. So, and the spiritual component, I think, is just imperative. So I'm so grateful to be here. So thank you for that.
And Mariel, this is Matt Russell, the moderator. If you could just click your video button so we can see you once again.
Yes.
Great. The moderator is not supposed to take notes. The moderator is just supposed to keep things rolling around. I have lost count. I'm on my 8th page of notes, and let me just say, to synthesize exactly what you just said, take responsibility. We have the ability to take responsibility for our health and do it in a way that's going to change the world by creating a community of wellness, rediscover the wonderful things called adventure and play, and celebrate the wholeness of our lives.
I love you, note taker.
that has been a moment for me personally, which I'm now sharing in front of 1,000 people. So thank you very much.
I feel well. That's a key, and you brought up something that's I got to tell you, or everyone out there, all 1,000 of you, but it doesn't seem like it, that one of the biggest things, aside from my silence and but play changed my life. I didn't know that I could be a child. And if you get to see Running from Crazy, which is what my film is called, you will see, like everybody, we all have a story. We all come from something. We've all had childhood something. But I didn't know how to play because I was a caregiver to my mother, who had cancer while I was a child. So throughout my entire childhood, I took care of her. And so I just wasn't a kid. I didn't know how to be a kid. And in my relationship now with my co-author, Bobby Williams, I mean, he literally taught me how to play. And I was so uncomfortable in the beginning. Like, I don't know how to do this. It was like it wasn't on a schedule. I didn't get it. But I've got to tell you that, finding your joy is so powerful to our balance and our inner joy, our inner beingness, our ability to connect on so many levels, which even leads into those simple choices, again, that you make in your life. If you're happy and you start to see that the choices you're making are making you feel better and you happy, it's a wonderful circle that happens.
That's wonderful. One of the things that I'm looking most forward to is jumping out of bed tomorrow morning. And in fact, while that might scare my wife, I actually might consider jumping on the bed.
There you go.
I love the invitation. We have a question that's come in, Mariel, from one of our viewers who is asking, was there one crystallizing moment in your life that really inspired this transformation that you've talked about today?
I wish I could say there was one moment in my life that made, but unfortunately I am slow and steady wins the race. So I am like the plodding girl that learns things really slowly and I have to do things for a couple of years. I wish I could say there was one catalyst or one shining moment, but it's, my lifetime has been my education. And really, this film coming out, Running from Crazy, was kind of it was the thing that made me realize I was okay. And that was a really profound moment for me, is to realize that I actually, you're not going to end up crazy. You're not going to get cancer. You're not going to do this, that, or the other thing. You actually can take charge of your life. And so that was really, so maybe that was kind of one kind of pivotal point, and that was just way too recently.
Is this documentary available for public view? How can our viewers see it?
Running from Crazy has just been released theatrically in New York, and it's released in Los Angeles. Tomorrow night is the first night, and tomorrow it's released in Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco. Or maybe Seattle is the 25th of November. And then hopefully by public wanting to see it, it will go into other parts of the country. It's going to open in Chicago on the 15th and what have you. But if people don't get to see it in a theater, it will be on the OWN network, because Oprah Winfrey is the executive producer of the film. It will be on the OWN network in spring of 2014.
Great. I appreciate your sharing that with us. We have another question that's come in. You talked about the concepts of adventure and play, and as children, we all have those and we all enjoy those, but somewhere along the line, as you talked about, we lose that. Any advice, Mariel, to parents of kids that haven't yet lost the sense of adventure and play, and how to sustain that and work with our kids so they own that and embrace that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of, I suddenly realized it was like we almost need permission, because we've been sold a bill of goods. We were raised to believe that, after high school and college, that then you become an adult and you have to behave like one. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't act like a responsible human and go out and have a job and make money so that you can, you bring home the food and the bacon or whatever it is. But that doesn't mean that you have to give up your joy, your youthfulness. And it really just means the way to do it is to do it. I mean, Bobby and I play hide and seek. It's ridiculous. The neighbor children think that our backyard is a park for thousands of children, or that we have thousands of children ourselves, and actually it's just for us. I mean, we have climbing ladders and, rope swings and a trampoline and slack lines, and we do all these things, and we play wiffle ball, and it's exercise too. But you don't think of it as exercise. We're just having a good time. And we make time to laugh, to really connect, and you kind of, sadly in our society, we kind of have to make time for these things. But once you start doing it, it's like any other habit. You start to become in the habit of being joyful.
I know Dr. Dharma has a question for you, Mariel.
Not actually a question. I just wanted to, hi, Mariel. Just wanted to add something, is that I've started playing again, finally. I mean, I play tennis and stuff like that, but that's not really playing. But I have a 4-year-old grandson.
Aww.
And so I've been talking to him on Skype, and then when we get together, and, that's really playing. So he has a pretend phone. I have my phone. Even though we're Skyping, we're pretending we're talking on the phone,
That's awesome.
So he's into dinosaurs now. So I called him up on the phone. His name is Simran Preet. Which means love of meditation. So I said, so we had our phones, and I said, I called him, we're Skyping, and I'm pretending I'm calling him, saying, is Mr. Dinosaur there? And he said, no, this is Mr. Simran Preet, so it's just, and then he holds up his dinosaur. So that brought me out of my, seriousness. Playing with the 4-year-old was awesome.
It's so true. It's so funny that, I love that you do that, and you realize that, and we will, and trust me, everybody out there, you will feel kind of ridiculous at first, because you're like, oh my God, is anybody watching me? I'm so silly right now. But then you get into it. I was so uncomfortable, but then you just get into it. It changes your life. And I think that it changes the chemistry of your brain as well. I really do believe that when we find our joy, and in the simple things, that it changes everything.
Yeah, and there's one other thing I want to mention. You didn't exactly say this, but you alluded to it, and that's the idea of putting as much as you can. Well, for me, I call it Return of the Turtle. You talked about slowing down, keeping things simple. I call it Return of the Turtle, where you actually have the nerve to put your health first. You make yourself a priority. And when I started doing that about 1.5 years ago, my health improved tremendously. So I want to just echo that.
You're absolutely right, and it does, and that's another thing I think we need permission for. I don't know why we believe, and especially women believe this. I think because we think, it's our job to take care of everybody. We got to take care of everybody else before we take care of ourselves. And the truth is, we're so crappy at taking care of anybody else if we haven't taken care of ourselves. So it really is, you're doing everybody a service by taking care of yourself. And what I love, and when I talk about that, take the I out of illness and put in we and create wellness, part of that is me taking care of myself, in my opinion, because we are now a community and all of us talking become that community. then I'm taking care of you. And if you take care of yourself, you're taking care of me. I mean, I really believe that's what oneness means, is that understanding that our self-love is the love of another, you know? So I think it's a powerful tool.
And one of the rules is to see the other as yourself. See everyone,
Exactly.
you know, we're all one. We're all one.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
And I would invite all of our viewers to go find the New York Times magazine from a couple of weeks ago if you have questions about what Mariel means by play and with Bobby and this lifestyle that she's really now embraced for the benefit of everyone she touches. Read that article. It's fascinating and it was inspiring. So,
oh, thank you.
How can our viewers keep up to date on your next adventures, and how can they find out where you're going to be or the projects that you're going to be working on?
Well, like I said, Running from Crazy is just coming out, and but Bobby and I have a site called runningwithnature.com, which is kind of, we're updating at least with all of our PR of late. Oh, and by the way, if you do read the New York Times, I just don't want you to think that my boyfriend Bobby drives 80 on a shoulder. He doesn't. He's a stunt man and a stunt driver. You have to understand that was for humor. Anyway, so that being said, I don't want him to get in trouble or picked up. But that being said, I'm developing a television series. We've got a radio show called the Running with Nature Radio Show, which is going to launch on Podcast One initially, and then we're going to have a national radio show as well, which won't happen until a little bit closer to the new year. And we're doing that. I'm developing a television series, where I'm going to act in it, which is kind of exciting because I look forward to getting back into acting. I'm producing my grandfather's book, A Movable Feast, into a film, and Bobby's got a climbing movie that we're doing. So we've got, you know, health and wellness is kind of our core. That's where we feel at home, and then we get to do this. We're working on doing the other stuff as kind of the added fun.
Great. If you have time for another question, they're coming in through text and fax and tweet.
Awesome.
Do you think mobile phones offset our well-being negatively?
Okay.
Let me make sure I have that. I'm reading that right. Do you think that mobile phones offset our well-being negatively?
Are screwing us up. Well, here's the deal. I think technology is amazing. I mean, look at us. We're doing this thing right now, and we're connected, and you know, we're connected all the time. But I think there has to be a mindfulness about how you use technology. I mean, you know, to be on a phone constantly. We watched a video the other day. It was some YouTube video of these people at restaurants, like all over the place, and everybody was on their phone, and they were like talking to each other through text instead of communicating, which I think is disturbing at a deep, deep level. But so we can love our technology, but don't take it to bed. In fact, what we do at our house is we turn off the power to our internet, so that, and boy, you cannot believe what that does to the sound in your house. It just really takes it down. I've also got plugins in my house that are supposed to be getting rid of EMFs. We don't know if it works, but it does seem to feel better. But I think it is something to be, it's a very good question, and it's just one, I think it's obvious that it's having an effect on us. So it means that we have to take responsibility of how we use our technology.
Right. Well, again, on behalf of the foundation and all the organizations and sponsors that have made this webinar possible, I'm profoundly touched by your message. And friends, Mariel has issued a challenge here this evening. And we hope that we have equipped you to respond in a way that is truly going to make a measurable difference in your lives and lives of others. Mariel Hemingway, I am profoundly grateful for your time, for your inspiration, and the role that you will continue to play in keeping this world a healthy place to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And bless everyone.
Thank you so
awesome.
much, Mariel.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And now I would like to ask Lori La Bey and Dr. Khalsa to conclude with some final thoughts. Lori La Bey, are you with us? Lori La Bey.
I would like to just piggyback on the conversation that for me, when they were talking about joy, dementia actually brought that back into my life, and it taught me how to play, because I couldn't control things anymore. Once you are able to let go of that control, that perceived control, you can find this joy and this calmness, and Mariel just exudes that, and you can have that too. I think we all can if we just shift our mindset. But I'd also like to say that, there are lots of ways that you can help the foundation. Donating is definitely one of them, and we've talked about that. But please help spread the word. Go to their homepage and follow them on Facebook, on Twitter. Go to the YouTube channel. There are so many people that you know that are not having this conversation because of the embarrassment and the isolation. So open the door, share the knowledge, make it easier. Thank you for joining us and allowing me to be here today.
Lori La Bey, thank you so much, and continued success with your work. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to help inspire our group, and we wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so much for your kind words and your advocacy. Dr. Khalsa, some final words.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. And I'd just like to say, along with Lori and Mariel, that the take-home message that I'd like to leave you with here today is that you have the tools within you to create a lifetime of peak mental performance. You can create the future of your dreams. But most importantly, you don't have to wait for a magic bullet drug to do that. For it was the great Charles Mayo, the founder of the Mayo Clinic, who once said, "That which can be foreseen can be prevented." So even Charles Mayo said that. But the answer is right here within you right now. Research reveals that what you eat, the supplements you take, how you manage stress, especially with yoga and meditation and your socialness and your spirituality, will help you keep your mind alive forever. The beloved poet Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "That which lies behind us and that which lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." And since we just brought in Western philosophy, let me bring in a little Eastern philosophy. The great guru who lived 400 years ago, Guru Arjan, once said, "All things are within the heart, the home of the self. Outside there is nothing. Those who look outside themselves are left wandering in doubt." So I don't want you to be left wandering in doubt. You can do it. We can help you. So please work the program, have fun, play, enjoy life, and be all you can be. Thank you very much for your support. Peace and love. Thank you. Sat Nam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khalsa, for your closing thoughts. And I see that the page is up on your screen right now. We've made it very easy and efficient for you after you reflect on the message of hope that we've discussed for the last hour and a half. Think about how you might participate. Think about how you might be called to help support the mission of this remarkable organization in your own way. All gifts of all kinds and all sizes are most welcome. Before we conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take this time to thank my very good friend and the Chief Operating Officer of the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, the lovely Kirti Khalsa. Kirti Khalsa and her remarkable team at the ARPF have done wonderful work for the last 20 years. They've worked tirelessly to bring the stakeholders together, the energy together, to harness it in a way that is most valuable and useful to you as our webinar participants. So thank you so much to Kirti and her dynamic team. Before we conclude, I'd also like to take the opportunity to showcase a few of the Foundation's upcoming events. The November contest on your Curtin Kriya experience is actually going to be posted up on the ARPF website. Again, ALZHEIMER'S Check that out. Also, the Foundation is going to be sponsoring several memory screening events across the country. The first two are going to be right here where I am in Tucson, Arizona, and there's going to be another one upcoming in the state of Virginia, the great Commonwealth of Virginia. Check ALZHEIMER'Sprevention.org for all the information about these upcoming events. And also, please be sure to visit AlzheimersPrevention.org to learn more about what we've talked about, And we really want to invite you to like the foundation on Facebook, follow the foundation on Twitter. There's a robust amount of information that is always shared by the foundation, and you will absolutely be blessed by learning it all. That wraps it up, friends, for tonight's educational webinar. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to enjoy us, to sit and relax and reflect on what you can do now to, as Mariel said, to take charge of your life, take responsibility for your health, and let the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation be your guide as you pursue that path. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. Good night.